When a liberal television host decided to ask Donald Trump questions about his marriage live on air, she never imagined it would be the biggest risk of her career. Before listening to the rest, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This was a prime-time television program watched by millions of people. The host had a reputation for putting conservative guests on the spot, and that evening, he thought he had the perfect plan to humiliate Trump. Questions for Trump had been meticulously prepared for days, with the aim of dragging him into discussions about his family and personal life. But what the host didn't realize was that this plan would turn into an opportunity for Trump to teach him a lesson. When the cameras switched on, Trump was resolutely settled in his seat, while the presenter sat with his classic fake smile, trying to keep the viewers interested on the screens. 3, 2 was called, and that moment would not only jeopardize the host's career, but also teach Americans what true family values mean. It all started with an innocent question. Mr. Trump, you built a great empire, became president, and inspired millions of people. Do you owe this entirely to luck? The presenter asked this question almost with a smile, but there was another intention behind the smile. That smile always left a question mark in the viewer's mind. What is he really up to? But Trump had fallen into such media traps many times before. He immediately recognized the strategy of a soft question at the beginning, followed by a blow. He leaned forward calmly, and his expression became confident and at the same time slightly smiling. That's really interesting to ask, Trump said, his voice clear. Liberals always use the word luck. They choose that word to belittle success, to downplay the importance of hard work and dedication. But let me be clear, luck will never build a skyscraper, create millions of jobs, and make America truly great. It was clear from the presenter's face that he was not getting the response he had expected, but he kept his soft smile intact and continued. So, you're saying that you've achieved everything through hard work alone? He asked, with a hint of sarcasm in his tone. I mean this, Trump said, his voice growing stronger. Success knocks on the door of those who deserve it. Yes, I've had some opportunities, but I've worked incredibly hard to achieve great things. I've faced sleepless nights, near impossible tasks, and challenges that give people an excuse to give up at every turn. But remember, I've never done it alone. There was a twinkle in the host's eyes. He thought he was ready to ask the question he had been looking for, but Trump was unwittingly making a much deeper point about his own life and family, something she hadn't expected. Were you alone? He asked, his voice a little more sarcastic. So let's talk a little bit about the people behind Trump. Who was really with you? Sure, Trump said, smiling slightly. You probably mean my business partners or my advisors, but you're actually forgetting one person here, my family, especially Melania. It was not hard to recognize the expression on the host's face. His eyes began to glow. He thought he had found the opportunity he had been looking for to trap Trump. Oh, Melania, he said, a mocking tone in his voice. You know, many people are wondering about her role in this process. It is said that the wife of such a powerful man has actually been a bit quiet. Trump's gaze suddenly became sharper. The air in the studio was suddenly tense. Quiet? Trump asked, the harshness evident in his voice. No, she is a woman of honor, but people sometimes have a hard time understanding an honorable stance. There are media who don't understand that, but it's a fact. The audience laughed lightly at Trump's harsh but true words. The presenter tensed a little, realizing he was getting a reaction he hadn't expected, but he didn't stop asking questions. I mean, Trump said, unlike other political wives, we don't hear much about Melania. Doesn't the public deserve to know more about Melania? Trump shook his head proudly. The public knows everything they need to know about Melania. She is highly intelligent, highly successful, and knows when to speak up when she needs to. She doesn't feel the need to raise her voice about everything for no reason, like some people do. The audience murmured in agreement with Trump's words. The smile on the anchor's face suddenly disappeared, and in that moment, everyone realized that this interview had taken a very different turn from what they had expected. The host, sensing that he was now in a difficult situation, decided to take a tougher approach instead of taking a step back. Now, let's talk about your accomplishments, he said, his tone even harsher, because some people are actually questioning whether Melania's greatest achievement is just being Mrs. Donald Trump. At that moment, the atmosphere in the room changed. Everyone was eagerly awaiting Trump's response, because at this point, the conversation could take a turn. Trump's eyes began to sparkle with jealousy and contempt. "Listen to me," Trump said, leaning forward slowly. "If you really want to understand, then you should know this. To underestimate Melania is to lose sight of the truth. Melania speaks 5 languages, has built her career from the ground up, and has proudly represented America as First Lady. But unfortunately, these facts are not being told to anyone, because the media, because of their own bias, ignore the truth." The host didn't know what to say for a moment, but trying to regain his composure, he said, "Of course, Mr. Trump, but her being married to you has opened some doors, hasn't it?" Trump responded with a tiny smile, but it was not sincere. "Let me tell you this," Trump said, his voice clear and determined. "Some people think of success as being beholden to others, but success is less about opening doors and more about what you do when you walk through them. Melania doesn't just walk through them. She transforms every room she enters." There was a round of applause from the audience. The presenter was even more overwhelmed, but decided to keep fighting. "However," he said, "you have to recognize that your position and your wealth affect how people look at her." Trump narrowed his eyes and responded sharply. "I think you mean people like you," he said, the sharp tone in his voice underlining every word. "Not everyone's character is shaped in the same way. Influence and wealth show the true character of a person, and the way Melania stands up to every attack, every unfair criticism, reminds me why I stand by her." The presenter now realized that she was in a difficult situation. Her smile had completely disappeared, but she was determined to make a mistake. "Yes, but you mentioned having him by your side. Your lifestyle, being in the public eye all the time, the media pressure, that must be a huge burden for someone who doesn't want it at all, right?" Trump's face hardened, and his voice responded in an equally firm tone. "Do you know what pressure is?" he said. "It's the media trying to create its own narrative out of everything. Melania has not only adapted to life, she's earned it. She's dealt with all kinds of attacks, even from those who say they empower women." The host paused for a moment, moved by Trump's words, but recovered and continued. "Sure, but having everything in the public eye might somehow feel like a golden cage to her," he said, his voice taking on an increasingly sarcastic tone. Trump replied with a raised eyebrow. "A golden cage?" he asked. "What an interesting analogy. Why is it that the media praises a strong, independent woman only because she can't be conservative, but if she is conservative, she is immediately closed, or in the shadow, or caged?" Murmurs of approval rose from the audience. The presenter had lost control at this point and stepped back nervously. "I'm just trying to make a point," he said. "Maybe Melania never expected that she would always be in your shadow." Trump responded calmly, but with a twinkle in his eye. "I think you're confusing light and shadow," Trump said. "Melania is in no one's shadow. She always shines in her own light. But you are too blind to understand these facts, because your journalism is not about presenting the facts. It's about creating shadows that don't exist." A deep silence fell over the studio. The producer was giving panicked instructions through his earpiece, but the presenter was determined not to back down and to continue on the path she was on. The next question was going to shock everyone. "Mr. Trump," the host said, dropping all pretense, his voice full of sarcasm and confidence. "Let's talk about professionalism," he said. "You are a powerful, rich, and successful man. You say you can have any woman you want, and yet you stay with one woman who—" He paused for a moment, for effect, beside her. "Did you really never think of a better choice?" he continued. The silence in the studio suddenly became ear-splitting. A few viewers gasped openly. Trump sat motionless, and his face was completely expressionless. The silence continued for some time. Trump finally took a very deep breath, his eyes eyes meeting the cameras, and said, "Buy better?" His voice sharp but calm. "Let me tell you something about value," he continued, "because I think the only thing you understand is value in this business world. Yes, sometimes an opportunity can be better, a new model, a shiny option, but we're not talking about real estate or cars right now. We are talking about my wife, my partner, the mother of my son," he said, and leaned forward slightly, fixing his eyes on the presenter's eyes. "And let me tell you what real value is," he continued. "Real value is the person who stands by you when the cameras are off. A true asset is someone who tells you the truth when everyone else tells you what you want. Real value is loyalty, honesty, and character, things that are not even taught in journalism school anymore." The anchor's face paled, and she opened her mouth, but Trump didn't give her the chance to continue. "Here's what's really interesting," he continued, his voice growing stronger. "You're here asking me if I'm looking for a better opportunity, but you're actually showing exactly why your ratings are down. Because you don't understand real value. You don't understand real relationships, and you certainly don't understand real respect." The audience began to applaud, dispersed. But even worse, the host's attempts to pull himself together would only sink him further. "I didn't mean what I suggested," the host began to stammer. But Trump interrupted him, saying, "But you did. You meant exactly what you said. And that's the problem with the media today. You say these things, you imply them, and then when someone challenges you, you try to back down. But let me explain one more thing about real relationships," Trump said. The host's body language was tense, and the echo of Trump's voice as he spoke filled the studio. "Melania and I have built something that most people only dream about. A partnership, a real partnership. Not like the ones you write about in the gossip columns, not like the ones you ask to ask you. We have overcome challenges together, celebrated victories together, built a life together," he said. He paused for a moment, letting his words sink in. The studio went completely silent, everyone waiting for his next words. "And here you are suggesting that I think of a better opportunity. Let me tell you something. You're offering me to trade loyalty, my essence, something deep down, true love, for a younger model. It's not just an insult to Melania, it's an insult to every woman who watches this program. It's an insult to every human being who has faith in real relationships." The host's producer hurriedly signaled for a commercial break, but Trump continued unabated, and everyone knew that interrupting it would only make the situation worse. "You know why I stayed with Melania?" he said. "Because she's irreplaceable," he said. "Not just her looks, but her beauty inside and out. And I'm comfortable because I know the kind of person she is. Her strength, her grace, her intelligence, her heart. These are not things to be traded. These are precious things." The audience began to nod in agreement, some wiping away tears. But Trump was not finished. He was preparing to deliver the final blow that would end this legendary interview. "And let me tell you something else," Trump said, his voice now filling the studio with authority. "This question you asked shows how today's media sees relationships. You think everything is fungible. Marriages, commitments, values, these are just commodities to be traded, things to be traded on the market of sensationalism." He pointed to the cameras, the studio, the whole setup. You invite people to these shows as if you're going to say something meaningful. But what you really want is the controversy, the drama, the viral moment. Congratulations, you will get one soon. The host's fake smile had completely disappeared. He now looked like someone watching his career collapse in real time. "Mr. Trump, I think you misunderstand," he tried to intervene. "No, I understand exactly what you said," Trump said, and added, "And now let me tell you what everyone in the House is thinking. They're thinking about their own relationships. They're thinking about their own marriages. They are thinking about the years they've spent building something real with somebody. And they're thinking, with your suggestion, that they should sacrifice all that history, all that loyalty, all that love, in exchange for what? A new model." The audience erupted in applause, but Trump silenced them by raising his hand. He wasn't finished yet. "You know what makes America great? It's not just our success stories, it's our values, family, loyalty, commitment, understanding understanding that real relationships don't matter how comfortable they are or how they look in a magazine. It's standing together through thick and thin. He leaned back in his chair, now fully in control of the situation. No, I never thought of anything better, because there is nothing better than Melania. There is nothing better than having someone by my side who supports me in everything. She has been my rock in every storm. The presenter was now panikedly shuffling his cards, looking for a way to get the interview under control, but it was too late. The power dynamic had changed irreversibly. And let me tell you something else, Trump continued, now sounding more like a lecturer than a defender. The real story here is not about me or Melania. It's about you, he said, gesturing with his fingers at the anchor's note cards. You came here with your prepared questions, your little traps, thinking to expose something, but in fact you exposed yourself. You showed everyone how wrong today's mainstream media is. The presenter's producer was beeping into his headset, but the presenter was sitting frozen, unable to take control of the situation. You see, Trump continued, you thought you were embarrassing me with the thought of leaving my wife for someone younger, but you embarrassed yourself, because you have shown that you don't understand real relationships, real commitment, or real journalism. The audience shifted in their seats, many nodding in agreement, some standing up. Do you know what real journalism would look like? Trump asked. You'd be asked about Melania's charity work, what she did as First Lady, the impact she had on millions of Americans. But that wouldn't give you your viral moment, would it? That wouldn't fit your story. Trump leaned forward, his voice becoming more intense. You know what the media does that really bothers people, he continued. It's not just bias. Everyone can see that you abandon real journalism, that you exchange value for cheap shots and catch-and-shoot moments. You traded the really meaningful things for sensationalism. The host tried to intervene, saying, Mr. Trump, we're just trying to ask what our viewers want to ask. Trump cut him off, saying, you're trying to create a debate here. There is no debate. A narrow-minded person like you thinks that a man like me would want to leave his wife with a young woman, because that fits your narrow point of view. But let me tell you this, real men, real leaders, they stand by their commitments. They honor their oaths. They appreciate the value of a true partnership. The audience applauded spontaneously. The host's efforts to control the situation were in vain, but Trump was not finished. He had one last point. And here's the thing about real partnerships, Trump said with calm confidence. They get stronger over time. Every challenge you face together, every victory you share, every storm you weather together. These are things that narrow-minded thinkers like you will never understand. The host, trying to salvage the situation, made a final plea. Mr. Trump, we were just trying to have an honest conversation, he said. Trump let out a short laugh. Honestly, let's be honest. You hoped to come here and embarrass me, to imply that my marriage was all about appearances or convenience. But instead, you showed everyone watching exactly why the American people no longer trust the media, he said, gesturing to the audience, to the cameras. Look at this studio. Every single person here knows exactly what he's trying to do, and so does everyone watching at home. They don't close their eyes to these tactics. They understand what real relationships are like. The host's face was alarmingly flushed, his producer now quickly signaling for a commercial break, but Trump held up his hand to stop them. No, let's finish this, because there's one more thing everyone needs to hear. The studio went completely silent, the cameramen leaning forward slightly because they knew they were witnessing a moment that would be watched over and over again for years to come. Let me tell you why this question of preferring the lesser of two evils bothers people so much, Trump said, his voice laced with both authority and genuine emotion. Not just because it's disrespectful to Melania, but because it's disrespectful to every couple that has grown old together, every relationship that has weathered the storms of life, every marriage that is based on something deeper than what you see in Hollywood magazines. Pausing for a moment, he continued, looking directly into the camera. You know, millions of Americans are watching right now. They've been married for 20, 30, 40 years or more. They've built a life together. They've raised children together. And you're sitting there implying that all of that should be sacrificed for what? A younger face? The presenter tried to say something, but all confidence was gone from his voice. Trump continued, "This is not just about defending my marriage. This is about defending every marriage that is based on real love, real commitment, and real values. Because that's what makes America great. Not the superficial values you impose, but the deep and lasting bonds that hold families and communities together." The audience erupted in prolonged applause. A few people gave a standing ovation. The host's producer gave up trying to save the situation, knowing that this moment would go down in television history. Trump was still not finished. His last words would become the most quoted part of this legendary interview. "Let me end by telling you this," Trump said, rising slightly from his chair. "To every person who sticks with their spouse through the hard times, who chooses fidelity over convenience, who builds a real life, who builds a life with a real partner, you are the ones who make America great. Not the media elite with their distorted values, not the Hollywood crowd with their consumable relationships." Turning back to the host, "And I hope this teaches you something about real journalism and real relationships and real respect. Because right now, America is not only watching me defend my wife, they are watching you expose all that is wrong with today's media." The audience reacted enthusiastically with a standing ovation. The anchor's producer finally signaled for a commercial break, but it was too late. Within hours, excerpts of the interview had gone viral. Social media was overwhelmingly supportive of Trump's defense of marriage and family values, and even his critics were forced to admit that the moment was a masterful lesson for the media. If you liked this story, please don't forget to click the like button and subscribe. Remember, real relationships are not about choosing someone better. They are about standing strong together. Share your thoughts by commenting below. Until next time.